Chapter 15. The Frozen Death Mountain. Hours passed, and the next day in the classroom, the students had received a letter from the director, informing them that the Inquisitor sisters were no longer part of the Rhoda School due to their absence in recent days. The boys knew that they had left thanks to the victory in the duels at the Great Saku Tree. However, this did not completely make the group happy, since they knew that if the two ladies they had defeated at the Great Saku Tree, it hinted that the other two they could appear during their visit to Death Mountain, as the message in the Hive rune said. After the lessons, during recess, Daniel Black met Marycross, Lewis, Angelica and Mariah in the library, and told them about the plan he had in mind. "Welcome friends, we need your help," said Black. "If it is from the prophecy I will gladly help," said Angelica. "Me too," exclaimed Mariah. "Me too. I want with my own hands to bring the blue orb to win your confidence," said Marycross. "I love that attitude," said Black. Continue Black. "What do you have in mind?" asked Lewis, extremely interested. "You should go after school to Death Mountain, in search of the orb, Blue, and then, I will wait for you in my home." "The home of the Blacks in Green Hills," Black explained. "What will we get in exchange?" asked Lewis, curious. "My trust. My friendship, and being part of the group of heroes. I'm sure you'll earn their trust and friendship," said Black. "Come on, Lewis. Let's bring the orb for our friends," Marycross shouted enthusiastically. "Okay, you convinced me, Black," Lewis said and shook her hand. Hours passed. The day ended and the four boys on this mission headed towards the Highlands District, to the Frozen Route sector, where the ascent path to Death Mountain began. It was a cold afternoon. Lewis, Mariah, Angelica and Marycross were at the foot of Death Mountain, in the Highlands District, at the entrance to the Frozen Route. Next to the main entrance to the trail, there was a cabin with a stable. It was a transit hotel called Alana's Place. Its owner was a girl named Amapanda Vikes, with copper-colored hair, light skin and black eyes. The boys began the ascent. As they walked on the path, the cold was getting stronger, the blizzard advanced and the fog descended. "It's so cold here. I feel like I'm going to freeze to death," Mariah said as she put her hands inside her coat. "That's why they call it the Mountain of Death. The first travelers who traveled through these mountains to reach the town died of hypothermia. Others were lost in the dense fog and fell on the crags and cliffs, and others, it is said, were kidnapped by extraterrestrial beings," said Lewis. "Well, let's quickly look for that orb and come back. I'm going to need a hot chocolate and several blankets when I get back to my home," said Marycross. "Let's continue, friends. We have a mission to fulfill," Angelica shouted. After the first kilometers of ascent, they reached the Eshin Cliff. It was a formation of marble and minerals, like a giant stone, and in its highest part, there was a statue of the god Eshin, where being in it there was a nice view of the town of Pizcet and its districts, in addition to observing the plains and the Great Prairie in the distance. This is the cliff of the god Eshin. It is said that the travelers who came here carved it into a stone with picks and hammers. It took them about 7 years to finish the sculpture, so that all the travelers who ascended and descended would be grateful and pray that they have survived Death Mountain, said Angelica. As they continued their ascent, they began to encounter various enemies such as snow figures, white rabbits with red eyes, white wolves, and ice specters, but the boys easily managed to eliminate them and continue on their way. After several hours of walking, they reached the second ascent point, another passing hotel called Georgia, and here the path divided into 3 trails. The path to Death Mountain, the path to the Red Dragon of the Fire Volcano, and the path to Tower Plains where the Martian ruins were. "Which path shall we take?" asked Marycross. "Will we divide?" asked Mariah. "I think it's best to continue as a group," said Angelica. Let's discard paths 2 and 3, and go to Death Mountain. After all, the message said that was where the blue orb was. Lewis said, and Marycross replied, "You're right. Come on." The boys headed to the Death Mountain Trail, where they only had a few meters left, and they reached the highest part. After 20 minutes of walking, they reached that section. It was 3,820 meters above sea level. From the highest point you could see how the clouds created a bed and foamy pillows, like cotton in the sky above the mountains. The sun was beginning to set, the temperature was beginning to get colder. In the distance you could see the sea of Captain Jolly Drake's Great Colorado Bay. On the other horizons you could see Tower Plains and its iron figures. Antennas and machines used for research on the Great Campus, and the sleeping volcano was beginning to hide behind the descent of the fog. It seemed that the volcano had a hat in its conical crater. The boys, after appreciating the beauties from the highest part of the town, noticed that the sun had set, the fog had gone down, and everything had become colder and grayer. A blanket of fog and a strong breeze appeared in the place, where a veil of blizzards made two human forms appear in the place. They face their destiny. They will pay. We will avenge the death of our sisters. Both human forms mentioned. The fog dropped a little and the two women could be clearly seen in front of the boys. "I am Firma, Third Inquisitor," said a tall woman, long hair with a tiara, very thin, with freckled skin, a pointed nose and eyes lined with striking eyelashes. "I am Vibera, Fourth and Chief of the Inquisitors," exclaimed the woman, with blonde hair, green eyes, a small face and nose, and her voice was low. "Do you have anything to do with the prophecy? Answer," Lewis shouted while pointing his wand at the two human figures. "Ha, ha, ha. Dear, you'll regret coming here," said Firma, "and just so that we can kill them. I see who came out alive from the great Saku tree when I turned them into little vermin," added Vibera. "It is time for them to pay for the death of our sisters, and the punishment for messing with the superiors. The fury of the witch returns." "And stronger than ever," both sisters added. While forming that sentence, the duel begins. The four boys face the two inquisitors. Firma raises her hands and attacks with a strong blast of Frieza on the boys, while Vibera, with a white cloak that she has as a scarf, launches another blast of Frieza. Both attacks are blocked by a protective barrier thanks to the reflex used by Mariah. Lewis, the magician, threw a flame of Berna at the inquisitors with her wand. But Vibera again used her mantle to protect herself from the fire attack. Following this, Vibera takes Firma's hand and they form a snowball, like a shell. And from inside they continue attacking with Frieza and Friezaga. Lewis with his wand used Berna again. Before this, the sisters begin to launch strong Windaga cutting blasts. Mariah throws a blow at her ally's magical ability called Fast, which is responsible for doubling the speed and agility of her allies, giving them the possibility of increasing the attack advantage over their enemies. In addition to that, Marycross used Health with her staff, a white flash coming out from her scroll in frog form, on his allies to recover energy from their vitality. Firma and Vibera create an avalanche of snow on the boys. An illusion of an abominable man was seen among the blizzard launching the avalanche. Fortunately, thanks to Mariah, she managed to nimbly create a protective barrier using reflex. The sisters' attack failed. Angelica destroyed the armor with her katana, leaving the sisters without a shield. Lewis launched Berna again. Vibera launched Friezaga with her mantle, but Angelica, very fast thanks to the fast that Mariah used, managed to cut with her katana the mantle of Vibera. Vibera's eyes turned white and she fell to the ground, turning into snow dust and sticking to Firma, and she increased her powers. Again she launched a powerful ice attack with Friezaga. The attack hit the boys hard, but they managed to endure it. Lewis launched a ring of burn of fire on Firma, completely defeating her and giving the boys victory that cold afternoon on Death Mountain. At the end of the duel, while the fog and the blizzard dissipated, a voice in the sky replied the following: "Laugh and celebrate while you can. Soon you will know your true destiny. She knows that we are looking for her." He said, "Marycross, today has been a difficult duel. And every day we will face more powerful enemies, much stronger than the last," added Lewis. "Let's continue on our way. We came for the blue orb, remember," said Angelica. "Look. There is a flag on that cliff. Let's investigate. It must be the highest point," Mariah shouted. The boys followed the path and ascended the cliff, where there was a monolith with the maximum height of Death Mountain, and on it a plaque. "Look at the plaque. It looks like a small door," said Angelica, pointing to the ground. And Lewis said, "Let's open it." Marycross and Mariah proceeded to open the plate. A ray of blue light came out and inside was the blue orb, so they took it. Lewis had it in his hands and told his companions to return immediately to Daniel Black. But first, night was about to fall. They looked at the sky. They watched as a bird of paradise crossed the skies, a green and yellow bird. Red left a flash of light wherever it passed. For them, that meant the light of hope, so they made a wish. The next day, the four boys headed to Green Hills to the Black home, to tell Daniel Black that they had found the blue orb. Once there, and Black with a happy expression, he extended an invitation to Angelica, Lewis, Mariah and Marycross to Asgard Ranch that same day at night. Night was falling, after a rainy afternoon. All the boys gathered at the ranch to receive the blue orb from the four heroes of Death Mountain. The orb was placed on the tray in the meeting room. Only 3 orbs were needed, the red, fuchsia and orange. Finally, the new house companions were sworn under the ranch covenant and joined the group for the cause in pursuit of the prophecy. After the fall, on Thanksgiving Day of that same year, everyone passed 5th year, and was preparing for 6th year, a crucial year for the boys. After Thanksgiving dinner, Black and Lewis were on the terrace of the ranch talking that afternoon, and there they would be joined in the conversation by Gavin, Roger, Alvord and Adrian. "Thank you for accepting me into your group," said Lewis. "Thank you for joining the cause. Your mage skills and knowledge of the ancient magics of Azteczahotakal will be of great help in the group," mentioned Black. "There are still 3 orbs left." "Fine," said Lewis. "Yes. And the 6th year is coming. Let's hope that luck is on our side and we can quickly get hold of them," said Black. "Do we have some kind of deadline for next year?" asked Lewis. "It is said that the minister will make the visit to the school in the final months, so we only have 12 months to search for the 3 missing orbs," added Black. "Then let's get to work with all the equipment since tomorrow," said Lewis. "That's how we should think," said Black while seeing Lewis's enthusiastic attitude. "I think there is something you haven't thought about, friend," said Lewis. "What do you mean?" asked Black, surprised. "I suspect that the school must keep some orb. I know we found the green one in the Great Saku tree, but I have a feeling that there must be another one somewhere else, hidden, or something like that," said Lewis. "You're right. I think it's in place that we should investigate. Since we have no clues about what other places we could go to look," said Black. "Let's get to work and search the school," said Lewis, and Black shook his hand saying, "Of course, my friend." Daniel and Lewis shook hands in the setting sun of a sunset after Thanksgiving at Asgard Ranch and counted the hours to restart the search for the remaining orbs together with the other members of the group. After this, the rest came over to chat after Black and Lewis's conversation. "I have an idea for fun," said Lewis with a laugh in his expression. "What is it about?" asked Black. "We will make a book where people will write down a gossip. We will put it in a specific place, either here or at the school. It will pass into different hands, until it reaches us again. And we find out what the gossip is about. Perhaps we will find some important information. That is also the main reason. Other people will also do it and it will be fun. And if it gets into the hands of the Scarlet Eagles, it will show them an insulting message, explained Lewis. Sounds like an excellent idea. How are we going to do it? Asked Roger. We must look for an old blank book. We must identify it, Lewis said. I have one. We'll use that one, Gavin said as he took out a blank book from his backpack. We can't put our names in it. Let it be something different from our real names, Roger suggested. No. Don't worry, I already have that in mind, said Lewis. Here. Use my graphite to write on it, said Adrian as he handed the graphite to Lewis. Let me write the first gossip, said Alvord. That's how Lewis took the book that Gavin gave him, and on its green cover he placed the following phrase, LXIs and his wand in the company of shotgun, whip, boomerang, trident and ring, presents the book of the gossip. And below the phrase, enclosed in a square frame, there were symbols of their weapons in circles that formed a figure. Alvord wrote a gossip in its content and left it in the common room of the ranch. Then the book reached Lewis's hands by that afternoon, and the next day he took it to the school and told his friends that in a month he would read what content had reached him. Months passed and the gossipographer came back to the group that created this same one. They began to read, and in it, someone from the Scarlet Eagles had written that they liked Aaron of the Jade Clovers, but they would never have a relationship with him because he was from Ars. Home. Look at this. A girl named Coney Aniston from the Pearl Lions says that she had a relationship with a 10th grade boy named Greg Durst and that he had, said Adrian. Shut up, I don't want to hear that. Read another gossip, Lewis interrupted him. The rest laughed. Then, Lewis continued reading the gossip, and there was another one about a boy named Johnson Gomer from the 7th year of the Golden Canaries, who mentioned about the red orb at school. Everyone reading that knew that the theory that that place was the next orb was true. And what insult will the book say to someone in the Scarlet Eagles when they read it? Gavin asked. Look at this one. On the 3rd page, Lewis said while reading a paragraph that Dan Lizard wrote. Since it had reached his hands, and the book answered him, Dear Mr. Lizard, keep your dirty hands away from this book, and we invite you to take some soap to take a bath in. Do you know the fountain of the clock tower? There you can wash your disgusting hair. Everyone laughed when they read that. And Lewis checked the gossip journal again and found a very important clue, written down by a girl named Lola. But it didn't say which house she belonged to. It mentioned that the Scarlet Eagles didn't belong. They had made no orb so far. But Lola also indicated in the book the same thing that the boy Johnson Gomer placed. She said that there was also a red orb in the school, which gave them a slight advantage over their rivals in this quest, and they had to go immediately for the red orb, just at the moment classes started. Hey, read more gossip, said Alvord, and Lewis, Gavin, Roger and Black began to read the rest of the pages of the gossip's book. The book had almost 400 pages. It talked about gossip about love relationships between students from different houses, where they took advantage of the recitals, the trips to the Green Forest, the swings to be able to see the love of their lives. On other pages it mentioned the nicknames that some boys had. On another page read by Gavin, it mentioned that Brian Bulworth had been expelled from school. And Roger read a page where it mentioned the Sapphire Falcon's strategy to win the student lessons next year. Black read a page from some 11th year boys, where in a few paragraphs similar to a will, they inherited things to their friends. Finally, Adrian found in the final pages some anecdotes of 9th and 10th year boys from the Jade Clovers where they mentioned misdeeds and problems that they had gotten into during their stay at school, and all the punishments that the teachers had imposed on them. Finally, Alvord said, That's enough. The red orb gossip is what we needed. The rest is garbage. I agree. But I will take it to the school next year to see what new information we get with our new weapon. Lewis said as he put it in his backpack.